Hey Jayanth, good to see you back, man. So,
Hey,
if you remember, we had fun discussing, AI, and then we, sort of segued into generative AI, which obviously is the logical conclusion of the entire thing. But, this week was pretty eventful. I found some interesting tidbits and I wanted to share them with you, especially because I know that you have this Merck AMG, if I'm not mistaken, right?
that's
And you're
correct.
the, I know, of course, in the given association over a decade, I know that you're a sports car enthusiast. So this might interest you, that generative AI is now even powering Formula E electric racing cars. I don't know whether you heard about this Genbeta. So on the 20th of July,
Mm-hmm.
this is a Formula E electric car
Mm-hmm.
called Genbeta, Genbeta. It
Right.
smashed the indoor land speed world record by more than 50 kilometers per hour. It reached a top speed of 218 kilometers per hour inside a building in London. And
Very interesting.
this was a Guinness World Records title. And
Very interesting. Of indoor speed?
yeah, into speed. And this guy, the driver, Jake Hughes of Neo McLaren Formula E team, he
Right.
beat this Mahindra Racing guy, Lucas Di Grassi. Now, both are good drivers, both
Yeah.
drove the game better. But the interesting part is not about, of course, that the race itself was electrifying, as I would like to put it. But the technology in Genbeta itself, it's an enhanced Gen 3 race car. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so, as you know that the Gen 3 race cars are the fastest, lightest electric race
Correct.
cars, and they
Correct.
have a top speed of over 322 kilometers per hour. And this
Yeah.
is already, if you remember, this you would know that it is used by 11 teams and 22 drivers in the ABB Formula E World
Correct.
Championship.
Correct. Correct.
Now,
I mean, that's almost Formula One speeds, and slowly Formula E is trying to get to Formula One, and we'll see hybrid somewhere. But I'm really interested to know how they've used Gen AI and for what.
yeah, so the interesting part, of course, they had 3D printing parts. They had a
Mm.
softer ion race tire compound called, which allowed this Genbeta faster warm up and a better grip, those kind of
Mm.
things. So but the interesting part is that Google provide Gen AI to analyze the driver's runs, and they use this Vertex AI now.
Ah.
So now Vertex AI is the ML platform, the machine learning platform that allows companies to train and deploy machine learning models. Of course, there's also customize these large language models, etc.
Correct.
Now,
Correct.
McKinsey. Now, the interesting part is McKinsey and Company's AI arm. It is
Mm.
called Quantum Black. Now, I found even the name pretty interesting. Now,
Right.
they built the data and analytics component to create the driver interface. I mean, I think it was the Chat GPT like interface. I have not seen that interface, but I presume so
Mm-hmm.
that it analyzed and queried data in real time using generative AI.
Oh, that's very interesting. So they're using Gen AI for the driver communication during the race. Okay. And also analyzing the data. I mean, obviously all these formula races, they collect, hundreds and thousands of data points while racing. Okay. So they're using AI and Gen AI to even better that analysis, because those analytics, all the formula races are anyway the epitome of, analytics, and we know this. I mean, I'm a huge Formula One buff. I mean, since the Michael Schumacher, Mika Hakkinen days, and even back then, looking at analytics, the data that they used to crunch to get even a 0.1 second lap time better used to be huge for them. So 20 years, 25 years back, I was introduced to the world of advanced analytics thanks to Formula One, being a Formula One buff. Okay. But now, it's good to see the overlay of Gen AI, how they are using it. Very
Yeah, but now
interesting. These are very
no,
interesting.
but let me surprise you now. So, if you think that you know what they have done, here's a bit of a surprise. That interface
Uh
actually
huh.
converted data into insights in milliseconds. and delivered them to fans in the voice of the car. Think about it again. So this was, giving
Oh,
people the
wow.
ability to engage with these data sets. Now, that I found extremely impressive. I mean, even from the point of view of engagement, even from the point of view of,
Yeah.
showcasing
Yeah.
the power of generative AI. And I feel these kind of use cases are going to make generative AI more palatable to the masses.
I completely agree. I mean, this use case of engaging the fans in real time is a brilliant use case. I mean, back in 2018, 19, both of us tried to build this company, Sensei Technologies, and we were working on it, right? And the first set of products that we built using robotics, advanced analytics, computer vision AI, and IoT were in the space of sports analytics, right? And since then, I'm very close to working at the intersection of sports and advanced technologies. And we've always known this, right? In sports right now, advanced technologies or emerging technologies, or especially AI, is currently being used only for better fan engagement by the media companies, okay, by the ESPNs of the world, right? And because more fan engagement leads to more revenue for these companies, right? So that's primarily where AI and other new technologies were being used, okay. And if in Formula E, if they're using Gen AI to convert the data that's coming from the car in real time, in milliseconds, into actionable insights, both for the teams and the drivers, and also engaging the audience, okay, that's a brilliant use case. That's actually a brilliant use case. And that's also where the entire sports broadcasting and engaging the passionate fan, and the intersection of economy meet, actually. So it's a brilliant use case. I mean, this week I've also been talking to some Indian entrepreneurs here in Bangalore, and I've been listening to how they're using generative AI, all of these funded startups, right, to automate their customer support, okay. And how they are using their own FAQs and the data that they had for the last 3 or 4 years to train LLM models. And some of the founders that I speak to, they say, if you have a decent engineering team, we can literally build a good automated chatbot that can do 95% of our current human call center based customer support over a weekend, literally 48 hours. I mean, Dukaan.com is one of the companies that came out and mentioned this. But I'm also hearing a lot of other companies trying to do that, because again, these startups, they're also in the space of, I mean, they're continuously on the treadmill of raising funds, right? One cycle after the other, one round after the other, one series of this one after the other.
But wait a minute. I mean, you brought up a very interesting point. You got the name Dukaan.
Right.
Now, that I think most of us would remember. It stirs a hornet's nest online because it was a very interesting case view. Now, let me refresh your memory out here. On somewhere in mid-May,
Mm-hmm.
Nikhil Kamath of Zerodha, he had tweeted basically saying that we have used generative AI to make to automate certain part of a business. I think it was around 30% of their business. But
30%. I remember the number, it
yeah,
was 30.
yeah, and he sensed a backlash immediately because that this is a very sensitive thing in India. I mean, job
True.
losses, generative AI, they sort of go together.
Yes.
He immediately made a statement saying that according to our new AI policy, which is the internal AI policy of Zerodha, we will not sack a single person because we have introduced a new technology. Now that I found, okay, you can call it a comforting feature. You can call it a Zerodha policy. Zerodha is known for that because I've earlier also had conversations with Kailash Nath, who is the CTO of Zerodha. And
Correct.
yes, it's a very small team, 30-member team, and they are at the cutting edge of technology. But that's not the point. It in 2 months later, Sumit Shah of Dukaan, he puts up this. Now he tweeted. Now this was a very, I always say this tweet had a sting in its tail. So
Controversial, yes.
very,
Yes.
very controversial, because he directly said that I have, sacked nearly 90%. I have had to lay off 90% of my staff because I
Customer
could
support staff, yes.
yeah, and
Yeah.
see, to his credit, he did point out the kind of savings, about 85% savings in customer support. I
Right.
think he could have handled it very differently, because what he perhaps did later on is somebody asked him, what about these job losses? He's saying, देखो मुझे तो दुकान चलाना है. I'm just paraphrasing it, but he said
Yeah.
यहाँ पर he said it very well. He said, यहाँ पर profitability देखा जाता है, sympathy नहीं. Now that clearly, reflects on the kind of negative backlash to the cash burn of startups. Now, when they're trying
Right.
to save costs by automating using these advanced tools like generative AI, there is clearly a backlash. So there's this, kind of companies having to strike this fine balance between the two. I know that you have also made these comments because you are pointing out how these guys have to,
Yeah.
like if it's a big company, they have to please their shareholders. If they
Correct.
are a small company, they have to please their investors. I think there's no escape route.
Yeah, there is no escape route, but looping back to one of the conversations we had earlier this week, or was it last week at our book launch, at the official launch of our book, right? I again have another example from this week itself, about job losses, and the revelation is, that I got about generative AI that I mentioned to you, during our book launch, was that yes, a lot of work will get automated. Okay, even for something that I or my team does, right? So we are a research and consulting firm, a ton of research and analysis and putting together the analyst notes and the client presentations. The Gen AI models can do a better job, and our proposal writing and everything. But like I said back in February, the revelation that I had that well, it's taking away a chunk of my work, but I am still needed to do the 15-20% of that, of the completion of the work. And the value of that 15-20% that I need to do all of a sudden went up by 40-50x. Okay, I will give you one example, and this happened literally like 2 days back. We are working with one client to put together their entire growth strategy. Okay, and they work with multiple verticals. It's a B2B software product, platform company, and one of the verticals that they work with is BFSI, in India. And we had to do deep dives in each of the industry verticals that they work in, and had to give them recommendations on the key use cases, drivers, challenges, most importantly estimate the addressable market. Okay, and also give them a go-to-market approach. Now, for the solutions that this particular client and their company offers, estimating the addressable market is very tough. I mean, these guys do offer a very niche product, right? So while we were putting together the BFSI deep dive deck for this client, the presentation was yesterday, and one of my researchers, okay, she somehow got and put in a slide of a chart of the digital transformation budgets of the top 12 banks of India, right? And when me and my other colleague looked at that data, we were like, wow, this is gold mine of a data, because now calculating the addressable market for our clients' offerings became extremely easy. We just have to take a certain percentage of the digital transformation budgets. So we were very happy. We were going ahead and finishing up the presentation and the slide deck. The presentation was yesterday afternoon, and for some reason the previous day, on Monday afternoon, we tried to check while we were doing the TAM estimates. We asked the researcher and the analyst, okay, where did you get this data from? Because in the slide she also put the sources as Hindu Business Line and NASSCOM and something else. We were like, this is a gold mine of a data, where did you get this information and data points from? Because this is very tough to come by. She was like, I got it from Bard. We were like, Bard, but you mentioned the sources here. Okay. She was like, yeah, the sources also were given by Bard. we were like, okay, that's our mistake for giving such a critical job to a junior researcher. And we asked her, did you go ahead and click those links of the sources that Bart gave you? Okay. She was like, no. We were like, okay, show us those links. And when we clicked, all the data was hallucination. Okay, by Bart. Now, what happened between that afternoon, day before yesterday afternoon and day before yesterday night, me and my other colleague, okay, had to pick up the phone, talk to our industry colleagues, figure out a way to, from ground up, figure out a way to estimate the TAM, get some proxies, get a methodology and approach done. And by yesterday afternoon, before the presentation, 2 hours before the presentation, we got the TAM numbers estimated, both bottom up, top down, and we got that triangulated and confirmed as well. And yesterday during the presentation, the sales head of our client says, you know what, your estimate is bang right on, because internally we have access to some of this data, and our estimate is also exactly within 5% of your estimate. We were like, wow, this is incredible. But what I realized is, this TAM estimate, what we've done, me and my other colleague done literally in half a day before yesterday, all of a sudden is extremely valuable. Okay. And a lot of, research and consulting work will be taken away by Gen AI. I mean, this as a part of Sensate, we tried to build summarizers. We tried to build consulting automation engines ourselves back in 2018-19, right? But still, some of these things, are extremely valuable. And that is, that TAM estimate yesterday was the hero of our presentation. Okay. And we realized that we are still not obsolete, and we cannot be obsolete. So my point is, job losses when it comes to Gen AI, I think in some or other way need to be handled in a different perspective. They need to be looked at by companies with the lens of which are the elements that Gen AI is completely doing right. Because the thing with Gen AI is, what it's doing right, it's doing great at scale. But what it's doing wrong, that also it's doing at scale. Now, that's the problem. Okay.
Jayanth, I think there are, of course, we will be speaking about these job losses and the negative impacts of generative AI. But I think you brought up, you raised two important points out here. One, of course, is clearly the benefits of generative AI, and the second part is clearly that limitations abound as far as generative AI is concerned. Now, clearly, I think Jensen Huang put it very well, because I find it one of the best explanations that I've heard on generative AI, that generative AI has this it has the power to actually make sense of any information. If anything has a structure, regardless of whether it is text, video, data, or even the DNA in your body, it will, if there's a structure, it will extract information out of it. You give it a right prompt and you get it out. Now, that kind of, I've paraphrased the explain, but the crux of it is essentially that going ahead, generative AI will be able to do a lot of stuff in these areas. So wherever there is knowledge, so anyone who's a knowledge worker, which includes you and me also, because we come in that professional setup of media, analyst and all, our jobs are at risk, because for the simple reason that generative AI can see a structure very easily. It can collate the data very and make sense of it. At least for the secondary data, may not clearly not for the primary sources of data, because that's going to be hard. I do not know till when, because I don't like to hazard guesses when any new technology is there. I think it's important to be humble, because we have seen the technologies outsmart us in the past. So we'll give the devil its due and keep it at it for now. The second interesting part which I find on generative AI is that now I was just going through some research by BlackBerry and Gartner. BlackBerry says that 75% of organizations worldwide are implementing or considering bans on ChatGPT and generative AI in the workplace. The And they, sort of surveyed 2000 IT decision makers, and the concerns were chiefly data security, privacy, and corporate reputation. Gartner did a similar survey. Okay, and Gartner also said that generative AI has become an emerging risk for enterprises. Again, if you see the three suspects: intellectual property, data privacy, and cybersecurity. I would add plagiarism, copyright violations, hallucinations, etc.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
but the only question here is, I think sometimes the reaction on both sides is to throw the baby with the bathwater. I see that from governments. I think the problem is with having extreme views, because you realize that if you have an extreme view, at some point in time, this extreme end will become a middle between some two other extreme ends. That's basic logic, because what you know
True.
is based on the data that you have today. Tomorrow, if I give you more data, you will probably change your view, and that extreme of yours becomes a middle between two other extremes. So I think, arguing either way, whether generative AI will take away your job, so if you take an extreme point of view, it's probably indefensible. But if you have to look, sort of learn, check, see, put guardrails, exactly what policymakers are trying now to, try to put guardrails, etc. But let's talk a little, about the positives of generative AI. One, I think, because the reason I'm saying it, and you'll enjoy this part of it, because I find it hilarious, ironical, and very humbling that when I looked at the World Economic Forum 2023 report,
Mm-hmm.
the, the jobs most at risk are journalists, media analysts, researchers, data tellers, bank tellers, cashiers, data entry operators, back office operations, the usual suspects that AI had.
Right,
Because
right.
traditional AI has been automating those kind of services right from the beginning. So
Correct.
we knew that of course, AI was being used, for instance, in news organizations for almost a decade now. And now with generative AI, it has just upped the ante, if I were to put it that way. In it Generative AI these tools can easily make a presentation much better than most people.
Absolutely.
Let's not I'm not getting into the hallucination part. I'm not getting into the misinformation. I'm not getting into the thing, because obviously people will jump up and say, no, no, but it can give you misinformation. Yeah, we are very well aware of those things. I'm just focusing on the positives for now. And saying, okay, fine, it can make a presentation in split seconds. It can create a whole, it can summarize information. It can perform these kind of tasks, and sort of, I would say, be a frenemy in the workplace, if you want to see it that way.
Mm.
Now, the only issue out here is, and it can help in drug discovery. It's helping, I think, of late. I think there's a lot of talk about the kind of molecules that it has been
Yeah.
discovering, probably the antibodies that it has been discovering that perhaps was not possible. But the interesting part on that World Economic Forum 2023 report is, these are the jobs that are at stake, at the most at risk, and everybody knows that. The jobs that are sort of not at risk at this time around with generative AI are the jobs in manufacturing. So on the
Mm.
shop floor. So I think somebody put it very well. I don't remember the name. Is saying the advantage that we have is that we have a head, we have a body connected to our brain, and that is helping us at this point in time to sort of, not lose our jobs if we are doing something that is a kind of a field work thing. So a
Mm.
marketing guy may lose his job, or the marketing guy's job may be at risk, or at most, if a company was, say, recruiting about 10 marketing, needed 10 marketing people to do all the presentation. Today they can do it probably with one or two. So
Mm.
that might also have an impact on the real wages, because wages could get depressed. Because, and any sensible employee is saying, "Arey bhai, I have given you this kind of job. You're using ChatGPT, or you're using Midjourney, or you're using DALI 2, or you're using whatever tool on earth." Tome is another one which is very, very famous now for video
Correct.
presentations. It's a craze with Gen Z. Now
Yeah,
you are probably using these tools, and employers are aware that you're using. uh, do it with a little fact checking, but this is reducing your time. So I don't have to pay you your 20 lakh package. I'm going to pay you 15 lakhs if you want your job. They could do that. I mean, I hope they don't, because HBR did point out that companies that try to do that are going to be losers in the long run. But the
absolutely.
jobs that are not at risk, at least for now, are those like plumbers, electricians, shop floor guys, drivers, because they have, as I put it earlier, a body attached to the brain. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, two things. One, to your point of quoting Jason Huang, that generative AI can do anything that has a structure to it, and I guess it is that aspect, that characteristic of generative AI that is being used in drug discovery. Because I wanted to point that out, the entire DNA structuring and figuring out drugs. Now, in the entire generative AI part, one thing that I did not clearly discover or get to the bottom of is how would the entire IP work, right? How would the patenting of some of these discoveries, how would of some of these inventions that would work? Now, one other point that that you brought out is that the jobs that are being lost are that of, according to at least the World Economic Forum 2023 report, are that of knowledge workers, but the shop floor manufacturing jobs and the plumber and the electrician jobs and the sanitation worker jobs are not going. But here's the thing, Leslie, it's an apples to oranges comparison, because in 2015 we were at the peak of IoT and robotics, and IoT was supposed to be this technology that was supposed to take away or automate a lot of shop floor jobs, right? And
Yeah, but
Industry 4.0, and it was World Economic Forum Davos that put out Industry 4.0 as an objective, mind you. Okay, and they said,
no,
oh,
but
these jobs are going to.
give me a second. Give me a second
Sure.
here, because I'm just going to compliment this exact part that you said.
Right.
What the World Economic Forum has acknowledged that part, that manufacturing jobs were sort of at risk
Under a
when
threat.
what we call AI 1.0.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
AI 2.0, of course, that game has changed. But what they have done, it was earlier, it was the jobs losses to automation was something at 47%.
Mm,
In this report, they have reduced that to something like 42% or something. You may
mm.
want to check those figures. So they have said, they have acknowledged the fact that the pace at which automation was progressing has slowed down.
Mm, exactly. And that is my point. My point is, we are discussing, see, to quote Bill Gates, he said at some point that we as humans tend to overestimate overestimate what can be done by technology in the short term, and underestimate what technology can do or change our lives in the long term. Okay. With that perspective, Gen AI is 8-9 months old. Okay, and we have the luxury of IoT, of being 8 or 9 years old. I'm saying, having these conversations of job losses and what Gen AI can do and what kind of jobs can go, we need to give Gen AI one cycle time, I think, because a lot of this talk in my mind would subside and plateau. And what we have observed, not just with IoT 8 or 9 years ago, and right now with a lot of technologies that was supposed to come and take over. I mean, robotics, for all you know, VR, we've been talking for such a long time that it'll take over how we engage and consume media and entertainment. And it's only now that, I mean, VR and AR has not even hit inflection point, but people are already talking about the issues that the human biological system is having by engaging with some of those systems for that long. So we do not know, over a period of time, what is the impact of these technologies in real world, the practical impact. So I would like to, give Gen AI its time, go through one of its cycles. Okay, and then come back and have this conversation as well. I am sure even us as
I
knowledge workers.
So I
Go
don't
on.
know whether we have that kind of time, whether we can, come back and discuss, because Gen AI at the pace at which it is moving at this point in time, the pace has slackened for sure. But
Mm-hmm.
if I were to look at the Gartner Hype Cycles, for instance,
Mm.
which are pretty accurate, from I think, with they must have made a few mistakes here and there, but I think overall they have been fairly accurate. So, according to the Gartner Hype Cycles, generative AI is 2 to 5 years. Foundational models are 5 to 10 years, which I
Mm.
found was pretty reasonable, because
Right.
foundational models go beyond the large language models, which are based just on NLP, and that is
Correct.
where what Jensen Huang has been talking about, the looking at a structure. If something has a structure, it can extract information from that. Now, how this will bear out on even traditional AI, whether AI 1.0 and AI 2.0 at some point will merge, and we'll just call it, AI, rather than splitting them between AI and generative AI. Because I think because we like to do that. I mean, come to think of it, people confuse, they use AI and machine learning in the same breath. Which time and again, you have to clarify that, AI is a concept, AI
Yes.
is an umbrella of technologies, and it is not really, it is just a desire of, humans to make machines smarter than themselves, as smart as themselves, or even smarter, perhaps. But people, I think, always love to have split hairs over abstractions at this point in time. But I think it's an interesting space to watch out as to what happens with traditional AI. How long can it be resilient? Like, for
Yeah.
instance, driverless cars. Now, coming back to the example that we started with, the Formula E electric car racing, where they use generative AI to create an interface which would help fans engage with the car or with the driver, the voice of the car. You know, Gradually we might see applications that we have not even imagined at this point in time. Because
Right.
I don't think anybody who created a foundational model or an LLM actually knew what the applications were.
No, okay. On that note, I have to tell you, I can't name the company, but we are working with one of the biggest global, okay, German automotive company, which powers almost 85% of components of almost every car on the face of this earth. And
Oh, that's quite a quick clue.
uh, software-driven vehicles and software-driven vehicle as a platform is going to be a reality much faster. And in the automotive sector, and AI and IoT both are going to play a very strong role there. But they're coming, okay, and not just the features and functions, but how the drivers and passengers are going to interact with the cars, while on the road, and even some of the features and functions can move to subscription model, like how we pay for our mobile services. We don't have to buy the entire car and its features at one-time cost. So all of these are happening. They're much closer to reality than one would like to imagine. But having said that, concept wise, idea wise, they have also been incubated and have been worked upon and been innovated for quite a while as well. Okay, so these are not new concepts, these are not new ideas. Okay, but coming out of the woods and becoming a practical reality, they are very close. Okay, so to your point, that is definitely going to happen. But to your earlier point, at least for this time frame, or for the time frame of this podcast, I quite like the demarcation on the labeling that you've done, which is AI 1.0 and AI 2.0. I personally like it. I'd like to continue using it for our conversations, honestly, because it brings in a very clear demarcation. And over the next 6 months that we'll be running this podcast, Gen AI will be the talk of the town for sure. Okay, for the rest of 2023. Okay, and it will help for us and our audience to very easily demarcate and correlate to what is it that we are talking to, and in what context, and with what reference.
So, what are we going to talk about in the next episode? Have you thought about that?
See,
Because
I
it's such a fluid topic, There's such an
yeah,
interesting topic.
if you look at it, most of this episode, almost 2/3 of it, we just talked about our experience in this last week, starting off with the Formula E and me with a couple of conversations that I had this week. I guess so much is happening in the space of Gen AI that even if we pick up, what's going to happen in the next week, that's going to, constitute a significant portion of our episode. So I would like to, keep it open. Right now, I haven't thought about it, but, anything and everything around Gen AI.
Well, I have a lot of tricks up my sleeve, but I will I will hold it till the next episode. So lovely talking to you as usual, gents. See you next week.
Likewise, Leslie.